Well, welcome back to the fourth blog in February on the theme of nourishment. How we nourish ourselves, what do we do to sort of replenish and take in what we need to be well-rounded, happy, full of life. And so today I'm especially excited to have a guest. Her name is Cullen Goodyear. Thank you so much for being here. She's a triathlete. She's over 60, I'll give you that little hint, and I'm very excited to hear her perspective on both nourishment, how she sustains herself in something like a massive physical event, and her perspective as a coach on really how she looks at training and the whole way we stay engaged and so forth. So lots to share today. Cullen, thank you.
Thank you.
Tell the folks, I'm sure they want to know. So I said you're a triathlete. Let's give them all the good stuff.
Okay, so this year I'm a particularly, my specialty is Ironman distance triathlons.
Right.
And that is a 2.4 mile swim to start, 112 mile bike, and then a 26 mile run all in the same day.
Woof.
At the end. And so this year I happened to win my age group in Hawaii, which is the Ironman Triathlon World Championship. It's in October. It's been there at that time of year every year, and since 1978, I think it is, it's been in Kona, Hawaii.
Ah.
And so I won it this year, and I also won it in when I was 60, so 2013 I also won it.
And this is for the age group of 60 to 69.
65, 69.
Oh, 69.
Yeah,
Got it.
65, 69. But I won
Wow.
the last, actually that's not true. That's right, I ran when I was 65 and last year when I was 67. So I screwed up the age groups. But when in triathlon you compete by 5-year age group categories.
I see. Okay.
And so that's where I'm at now. I've done many. I started way back in 1989, when I had been doing shorter distance races just for fun in Quebec. Mm-hmm. And in those days, the whole exercise physiology, all of the whole subject matter was very, very new.
Yes.
And I was part of a swimming group, and we just went and did these fun races, and I just became kind of enamored with this sport. And then in 1989, I applied to get into the Ironman in Hawaii through the lottery, which was up until last year. Actually, you could apply to get into the Ironman by a lottery system, but in '89 it was still very new, and I just wrote an application, literally, and I didn't even have the address. I just sent it to the Ironman office in Kailua Kona, and my friends did too. And they all got answers back, handwritten answers saying, sorry you didn't make it. I didn't get a response and I thought, oh well, and everybody was joking saying you didn't even have an address, and I didn't. And then sure enough, about a month later, I got an answer saying that I had gotten in by this lottery. So this
I've
was
got
in 89.
goosebumps, Cullen.
Well,
it's almost felt.
It was weird. It was really
It was meant to be, obviously.
Yeah, and nobody knew we certainly didn't know how to train. We didn't know how to. I had a 5-speed bike. I had no cycling shoes. You didn't even have sunglasses. I had a helmet, but that was about it. And I was somewhat poverty-stricken because I was a single mother and I had 2 teenage children. Anyway, the whole thing was kind of serendipitous because I did go, and then I became quite infatuated with the whole thing.
And
so
here we are today, and you've made it to champion.
Yeah.
That is so impressive. And as an older person, in the sense of aging, and my goal is to age gracefully, I think it's really wonderful to hear from people that are continuing to be well and healthy and excited and inspired. So that's part of really why, if you'd been 32, I might not have been quite so excited to meet you, but over 60, I think that's so wonderful.
Well, it is kind of interesting because there's very little known about aging in a highly competitive manner, and
Yes.
especially for women. There might be a little bit of information about men, but there's very little about women. So that's one of the things that keeps fascinating me, is because you can't go to a book and look it up.
No.
And so I'm sort of my own little test case, because that's what I think keeps me kind of fascinated too.
And you know, that's part of also when we talked on the phone and I asked you if you do this interview, I love that you said, you know, I'm continuing to learn and explore and literally get data just through firsthand experience.
Yeah, and that's true.
You know, I was saying to Paul that, you know, one of the things I teach a lot is the needs that we have, genetic needs. One of them is for fun.
Yes.
And fun and learning are literally intertwined. That's the natural, optimal state for learning is through fun. And so to me, that's part of what I really felt like you were embracing.
Well, it's true. And I think that you have the three major parts of like you say, is of learning is the psychomotor, the cognitive, and then the affective part of it. So you have the three aspects of it, and that's what has, like you say, the affective is sort of the emotional attachment to what you get out of it.
Right.
And the psychomotor is the doing, and the cognitive is the learning, and the actually, figuring it all out. And that's what is fascinating, is right.
Good.
Yeah.
So I want to talk a little bit about maybe all three. We'll see. But because we're talking about nourishment and so on, and what really nourishes you in terms of the training, because when I think of training, it just seems very daunting, very onerous. Honestly, it just like hard work, pain, sweat. So, but clearly, if that was all there was, you would not have this glow and joyful look on your face. So,
what is
it? Tell us.
I think that's the attitudinal shift that people need to make about training, or I call it training, or being active. Now, most people call it working out.
Right.
I hate the word.
Good. Why?
Well, because it's not working. Is that onerous aspect out and out? I'm not too sure where they're going, but it's to me it's the wrong language, and I never use it with my clients, and I never even think of it myself, or even with my grandchildren who now do some fun things. I always say, well, so how is swim training, or how was your swimming today? That sort of thing. So I think that's a problem, because somewhere along the line, it was changed from being training to be active, or because that's what it is. You're training to do something. I don't really understand the working out language of it at all.
Yeah.
So for me, and all the time, I'm considering it as training to either, for people who don't have necessarily a performance goal, just training to be able to do something a little bit better, whatever it is in the gym or the pool or wherever. And so for me, it's not onerous, because I'm not racing when I'm training. I'm training for the end goal, which is some race some down the road. Just happens to be I happen to have an end goal of a race down the way. But it's there's a process to it. So the training is not onerous. It just has a little goal for that day.
Right.
And so you don't, if it's the way it is, it's just the way it is.
Yes.
It is the way, it is what it is. It's nothing more. So you're not you're not making yourself miserable by having it be onerous.
Right.
You're saying
pressure.
you're saying that you're going to go have a walk on the seawall. Cool. That's great. So that's your training for the day, to have fun along the seawall.
Sure. Yeah.
And it's great, because you're going to end up being active at the same time. But I think that's the problem with the whole
shift.
It's a shift in your attitude. Like, you don't say to Marie or somebody, I'm going to go work out with you and we're going to go walk on the seawall, which might insinuate.
Good point. Yeah, I don't think of it that way.
No, good. You see, you're thinking of just going and having a social event with Marie.
Yeah,
and you're having
and
to be
play,
walking.
and I get some physical. But
there you go.
And that's how you approach your coaching.
That's exactly how. I'm trying to get their mindset switched, though, because so many people say, when are we going to work out again? And I'm not. I try to say, well, when can we train?
Yeah.
Yes, anyway, so that's
Thank you.
That's
so that's one thing.
Yeah, it's a very important mind shift. And too many people with all the electronic devices we have now, that track everything, and online places that you can go to submit your training or your race of the day.
Yeah, your stats.
Put too many people out there for criticism, or what happened to you today, or why did you go so far, or whatever. It's too much to me. There's got to be a little bit more. Well, my feeling about it is there should be less focus on the outcome rather than the process of what you're doing.
You know, you are so talking my language, because I'm all about being in the process, enjoying the journey. You know, people get to an end goal, but if you've been miserable all along the way, it's just like, why bother? That just doesn't resonate for me.
Find another way.
Yeah. So now, in terms of nourishment, do you have some thoughts and tips? Because I know you're both the athlete, but you're also a trainer and a coach. You know, when you think of nourishment, body, mind, and soul, what comes to your mind?
Well, it's the enjoyment of doing things that you like to do. And I think there's a lot of, well, for me, I definitely do things that I like to do. I try to avoid. Of course, I have to pay taxes, but which I'm working on right now, and that's not enjoyable. But you sort of have to muddle on through it.
Right.
But in the rest of the time, I really try to choose to do things that I'm really quite enjoying. And I love my work. For instance, I'm very lucky because I love my work, and I have a great family, and you know, I feel as though that's very important, to choose things that you really do like to do, and conduct your life in a way that you can sleep at night, and you're not feeling that you've cut somebody short, or I don't know, not been trying to be a fairly good person.
So I want to talk about, because I already know that you adore outdoors and nature, and I did a previous blog on forest bathing, and what they're finding is the incredible nourishment that just time in nature and in the forests can offer the body, and literally right down to the cellular level. So let's just have you share about, where did you get your love of the outdoors, and what's that really like for you? Because I think this is awesome.
I think, and my mother's not here anymore, but she died several years ago. But I think it was because of her, because when we were children, and my mother loved being outside, but when we were children, we were never in the house. Well, we had to sleep in the house, but apart from that, all of our lives were pretty much outside. We had animals to take care of. We had a horse to ride. We had chickens to feed. I don't know, and we had things to do outside. And my parents were both sailors. We were sailors. So we were on the open ocean for as long as you could be, depending on the weather. Like the boat was put. It was on the east. I lived on the east coast of the United States, and the boat had to be put away for the winter, of course. But then my parents, we were skiers and stuff like that. So my childhood was spent outside, and I do find that that's one of the reasons why I do love this sport, is because it can take you outside if you like to be outside. And except for swimming in the winter here, I do all of my training outside, and I just really don't like training inside. Like, I hate running on the treadmill, and I can't ride inside anymore. Like, I'd much rather be in the pouring rain and with all and all the wet. And I'm cold, and I'm not saying, oh boy, I love being shivering and cold. However, there's so much more to pay attention to outside. Even if it's pissing rain, you can watch the rain bounce off the pavement and sort of decide how wet you're going to be when you get home, or something like that, which I do. You can see, if the rain is coming and it's not bouncing off the pavement, you know that you've got at least an hour. But if it's bouncing off the pavement, you know that you're going to be wet in an instant, and that's just the way it is. But I
love that noticing, because what I'm doing right now is I'm imagining I'm in your shoes, and it's just so cool, because I mean, I think my focus instead would have been on the hard part. You know, it's cold, I'm wet, how hard am I going, as opposed to what am I seeing? What am I hearing? What am I feeling? And the
It goes back and
magicalness.
forth.
Yeah.
It goes back and forth between being cold.
I'm sure.
And then just seeing, whoa, look at how wild it is.
Yeah.
And the waterfalls and stuff that are coming down, and how dirty your bike is going to be when you finish, how much work it's going to be to clean it up, that kind of a thing. And but the other thing is sometimes there's surprises. Like this morning when I ran, it was wet. I'm not too sure if you could remember, but my thermometer read only 5 degrees, so I thought it was going to be quite chilly, but it was actually warmer.
Oh.
Even though, so I think we're coming into spring a bit.
Yes, I
And so
hear.
even though it's 5, on my thermometer, it's not quite as cold as a 5 in December. It's the oddest thing.
Right.
But I think that's true.
Okay.
I honestly think it's true. It's not quite as, 5 in the winter is cold. But it's just, there's something, maybe it's the, the flowers are starting to come up, the grass is getting greener. Maybe they're giving off heat. I have no idea, honey. But
Okay.
it is, I feel that it's warmer.
So I have to ask you some obvious questions that I know people will be thinking. How often do you train?
I train 6 days a week. I always have my clients, or anybody, at least have 1 day off a week.
Okay.
So I train at the height of my training about 22 to 23 hours a week. Right now it's a little bit less because I just did a marathon, so my run isn't quite as long. And also it's hard to get a long ride in because I'm hoping tomorrow, because like last weekend it started to rain, so I had to come home.
Got it.
So but in the height in the summer, it's around 22 to 23 hours a week of training. But I mix
And
it
what
up.
about fuel? What are you eating to be able to?
When I'm not training, I am a vegetarian, but I'm not. I do eat eggs and cheese, and I do eat things that aren't considered proper. Like I will eat chips, and people say, "Well, I eat chips," and I say, "Yeah, I eat chips."
Good.
Things like that. When I'm actually training, though, it's actually the best product for endurance training are sugar-based products. They're not out of sugar, but maltodextrin, which is a man-made carbohydrate chain, which it absorbs very, very easily. But almost all of the gels and stuff and electrolyte drinks that you can use have some sort of a glucose carbohydrate base to them, but you want to choose one that has very little fructose, that has mostly the maltodextrin, a little bit of glucose, but the majority of it is the maltodextrin, because that absorbs really easily in your bloodstream. So it's for a person who isn't training long distances, it's not a desirable thing to eat, of course, but we need it because that's what goes into our bloodstream as quickly as possible.
Gotcha.
And you want to have it to be about 8% of the carbohydrate source compared to liquid. So if you have a gel, for instance, you want to supplement that with some water, depending on the time of year and that sort of thing. So it's the whole nutrition thing when you're actually in training is quite complex.
It's quite a science.
Yes, it's quite a science, and everybody's a little bit different. The other thing is you can train your body to need less by training your body to use more fat calories while you're training, rather than needing the glycogen right away. So it's nutritionally, I get my good things in real meals. Yeah. But out training, it's
a little.
It's just
okay.
Things we have to have.
Right.
Energy. All you're trying to do is intake energy, and that's it. Nothing that you want to digest.
Okay, and that's my last thing I want to focus on is, can you take us through the latter part of the race? You've done the swimming, you've done the cycling, and now we're running. Like, I think so many of us are not marathon or, certainly not triathletes, but what's that like for you? What are you thinking about? Is there any way you can just share a little bit of that? Are you even thinking? I don't know.
No, I'm definitely thinking. And every race is a little bit different. So it's not a uniform response because the races before you get to the run, each one is a little bit different before you get there. So, for instance, I'll be brief, but last year I did a race in the Canary Islands called on the island of Lanzarote in May, and it was an Ironman, and it's renowned in the circuit as being one of the hardest, if not the hardest, course because there's 2,700 meters of climbing.
Woo.
Okay, so on the bike. So that's fine. So you train that before. But what threw me off was it blew like stink. And I have been in Kona and I thought, oh, I can do, winds are easy peasy. However, this was it was blowing around 56 kilometers an hour into your head as you were doing this climbing. Plus the water was very chilly. The day was cool and I was quite cold. So by the time I finished the bike took an inordinate amount of time. It took me 8 hours and 15 minutes. I know, to get and by the time I got onto the run, I was cool. I never warmed up. I was quite tired. I was depleted because on the course they'd run out of electrolyte drink. And I had run out of my goos and stuff like that because I'd been out there so long. And so when I got to the run, I had been shivering for so long, I really needed a porta potty. But they were full. There was only one on the run course and it was full. That race, it was gross, but that race, my thought process on the run was totally different from normal. So that was one race. Vary. However, in Kona, for instance, in October, so it's a different story. It's windy, it's hot. I know the course very, very well. You've been hot all day. And when you get onto the run, the first part, and also in Kona, it's so hot that all of the electrolyte drink on the bike course and stuff is very hot. So complete opposite from Lanzarote. But the result is that you end up having to drink water because I can't ingest the electrolyte drink when it's hot. Okay. So you come off the bike somewhat depleted of liquid. It's hot and you need to hydrate. Yeah. So the first part going out in Kona, my first thought going on the first 5 miles, I have to hydrate. Yes. So I get into each aid station and I haul back on the drink and I try to get as much in as I can. And then I can tell when I've hit it, when I've gotten back to my level. And then I focus on really just getting the job done. Okay. So you feel good, you know I can tell that I'm hydrated, I'm ready to go, and then you just run as well as you possibly can. And I'm not a good runner, so I focus on the skill of the running. So I go through this checklist all the time of trying to be a skillful runner, get into an aid station, keep hydrating, take my salt tabs, get out of there as fast as I can, and carry on. And then I head out and I'm focusing on the skill and the drill of the running. And
it's astonishing to me to hear that you're not a good runner.
Oh no, because I'm biomechanically, I've got a super long femur. I have a longer femur than most 6'4" men. Whoa. So yes, it's really long. And I have scoliosis of my lumbar and thoracic spine, plus I have a torsional tibia. So my right foot.
Oh my goodness.
I know, so I've got a lot of, biomechanically I'm not great running. But yeah, so I have to focus really a lot on how to run. Like I know that there's ways to do it, and I try to do it as efficiently as I possibly can.
And we're full circle back to that learning and that developing and the training and the skill.
It has to be.
This is very inspiring. So those of us that are feeling like we don't have the right physiology, as in body type, we're just not built for this or that, we've got a weak back or not enough upper body, obviously there's lots of hope.
There sure is.
For what we could be doing.
And you can train it.
Exactly.
You totally can. You definitely can train it. Okay. You have to have the faith.
And I want to end on the last bit that I also heard, that you bring in the play when you're in the water and you're coaching people. You get them to do something, I don't know, they called it dolphins or...
Dolphins and handstands. And we do fun things like we'll combine a freestyle arms with a fly kick, or or something funny like that to make it, or a backstroke with a breast kick or something to mix it up, and so that it's not just hardcore.
And you were getting...
Yeah. And also I do think it's important to play at the end.
And these are hardcore athletes.
Not hardcore, but everybody's swim training. They're trying to get better at swimming. But I think that it's when you're in the water, it's fun. It's fun, and also you feel your body. And people say, "Oh, that was so hard, I can't do it." And I said, "Well, I know. That's why we're doing it, so that you can figure it out. Because then it's fun, and it's fun. And then the dolphins or handstands at the end it's just a play. It's just a play, so that you can leave the practice thinking, oh, that was kind of fun. I had a fun time.
Thank you. Well, I've had a wonderfully enjoyable, fun time listening to you. I think it's just so inspiring, and I think you're really bringing in elements that I've wanted and believe in. The play, the fun has got to be there, the presence has got to be there, the being in the moment, not just the outcome.
It's never the outcome until you're done. And when are you ever done?
There you go. When are you ever done? Well, we'll close on that note. Thank you, Colin. This has been awesome. Send us your comments, any questions, ideas, whatever you'd like in regards to this, and bye for now.